It's time for ACC Central, presented by College Baseball Central. Hosted by Monty Taylor, Micah Butel, and Nick Dioli.
ACC. Welcome back, college baseball fans. No Nick again today, but we do have Baseball Micah again, and I think that's a permanent thing now. I think Baseball Micah is just in vogue now. He's back.
I'm watching NFL playoffs for what it's worth, but yeah.
On the day of recording, he's watching NFL playoffs.
Correct. On the day of recording. Monty, no one knows. Everyone knows that we're not recording four of the, like we're recording every single night. Come on. I mean, it's light in your room. Come on. You can see the sun shining.
That's the ring light. Anyway, we are continuing our deep dive preview series with Cal Bears. It's our first time deep diving the Cal Bears because it's their first time in the ACC. I know Micah is super excited about Cal. He loves Cal. He is a Cal Bear through and through. I'm just super excited for them to be in the conference. It could be a rough transition year for them. The ACC is a bit difficult, and Cal has lost a lot. We'll start. I jump right into it, Micah. That's a lot of dudes.
That's a lot of dudes. When I was there in the fall, I think the best thing that I heard, and it wasn't like it was not what was said, it was how it was said, was I can't remember which coach it was that I met. It wasn't Coach New, and it wasn't anyone that I talk to on a regular basis, just in passing. They mentioned something just about it was pretty much like a 2025 is going to be a year, and in a way of we don't know what we're going to get. We believe in what we have, but you just don't know. I mean, we just talked BC yesterday, show wise yesterday, and it's kind of what are you going to get? Well, Cal's got even more question marks, especially because, not only are we talking question marks on the lineup, we're talking question marks on how are they going to adapt to being in the ACC. I mean, the Pac-12 was a good baseball conference. Anyone that thinks, the Pac-12 was bad, clearly didn't follow college baseball.
But last year was a down year for the Pac-12 as they finished.
Correct. It was down, and let's also call it what it was. There is a lot more, the bottom of the Pac-12 was way worse than the bottom of the ACC.
Yeah.
And, again, I know the traveling is not going to be, it hasn't been a huge thing in a lot of these sports yet. We've noticed, these basketball teams aren't necessarily struggling, right, with constantly flying over to the East Coast or whatever. But there's going to be some wear and tears of, when you play a midweek on a Tuesday and Wednesday, and now you've got to go fly over to Georgia Tech or I'm not looking at Cal's schedule directly in front of me right now, but I know they've got obviously some trips over here. So, it's going to be something to kind of keep an eye on because there's, again, the transition of just also the style of play is going to be different. So just how it's all going to break down for Cal. I mean, this could be a year where, their record maybe doesn't show the talent that's on this roster.
Yeah, the thing that concerns me the most is you look at all those pitchers they lost. That's what's the most concerning for me because I think their lineup's decent, especially with those two sophomores up the middle that we'll talk about. But yeah, no, the pitching depth is a little scary to me. But they did bring in some new faces of their own. If I can find my way over here, so they bring in a ton of guys to kind of offset some of that. They went and got a lot of JUCO guys. They brought in a lot of fresh pitchers, so that's a big factor, and we don't know what they've got because they've brought in a lot of unknown pitchers. They do bring in somebody like David Shaw from Texas, who has had his ups and downs at Texas. You have a Spencer Dessert. I think I spelled his name. I think there's an A in this instead of a second E, but the lineup I like a lot. The pitching staff is the question mark for me.
Yeah, I think the one thing when I really started to research Cal, just from, again, did I watch? I probably watched 2 total Cal games in 2024. is that I trust the history of Mike New to develop pitchers. Obviously, his background is as a pitching coach. He was the pitching coach at Cal before, was it Pacific, and then back to Cal. So anyways, like he's someone that I can trust to get the most out of some of these guys. But again, like we talked about with Boston College, we don't know. We don't know how Ethan Foley is going to transition from the junior college ranks, or Cole Clark. David Shaw at Texas, I'm going to double check, but I'm pretty sure, right? He didn't have it wasn't like this was a loss for Texas that had, Texas fans up in arms on social media.
No, he had nearly an 8.0 ERA.
So again, these are guys that have potential, and with the right coaching, right development can be that. But we don't know. And again, you're transitioning to the ACC where, they're going to see lineups like Virginia's, like Georgia Tech's, like Louisville. We have some of the best hitters in the sport in this conference. So you're going to be facing those on a night in, night out basis. There's not going to be a lot of room to, get your feet wet. You're going to have to just go right into it and hopefully have it figured out come March, come April. Because, again, last year, this is a bubble team that, if you look back on it, has a legitimate case to have argued they should have been in. But, there's a lot of reasons to believe they're not going to be as good as last year also. And last year they didn't even get in. So if we're talking 2025 NCAA tournament, I'll say it, Monty, I'll be shocked if any major publications put Cal in the NCAA tournament going into 2025. And that's not a shot at this team because they have the potential to do so, but there's just so many question marks.
Yeah, and like I've said before, any of the teams in the ACC, if things go right their way, can be in the NCAA tournament. It's just teams like Cal and BC and Virginia Tech and Pitt and Notre Dame. They're going to have some harder paths if they're going to need more things to go right than some other teams. But talking about this pitching staff, they don't really bring back a whole ton of starting experience. I think the only guy they bring back with any bit of experience is Austin Turkington. He's pretty much the only guy that you're, again, similar to what we talked about yesterday with Boston College and AJ Colarusso. He's the only guy that, it seems to be a lock for the rotation.
And then, the thing is with Austin Turkington, based off the amount of innings he threw, he's more of an opener starter than anything. He had 8 starts, 23 appearances, and only 30 2/3 pitched, innings pitched. And 2 of those include saves. So, he's not saying that he's not capable of being a rotation guy because he clearly is, but there's zero proven rotation in terms of again, what do you want from your starters? You want them to go 5, 6. There's nobody that has that proven at this rank. Spencer, again, you Desart, whatever it is. I'm sorry, Spencer, for spelling it wrong. I can't trust Monty because he's got it spelled one way and then spelled another way. So
Desart,
Mr. Dessert. But he's the only one that's got proven, more consistently proven outings. He had a 6.84 at Washington. So, that's probably the guy you're most excited about, I guess, in that sense. Just based off of numbers, right? Not being around the program every single day, he might be the Friday guy in 2025.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There's another name on this list that has, 2 of the JUCO guys might have a really good chance because of the numbers they put up. But you got to remember the JUCO league is not the ACC. In Ethan Foley and Cole Clark, obviously Ethan Foley's not on this rotation options list, but he probably should be given his past experience. But they both put up numbers in JUCO, which is all you can ask for, and threw over 80 innings in each of those seasons.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Here's the whole pitching staff.
Yeah, I think just so much. This is what's frustrating for me, Monty, as someone that wants to be able to provide knowledge to people watching, and I think right by being able to present these names, it's so beneficial in a sport like college baseball. But it is so hard to talk a team when you need to be around these guys every single day to really know what's going on because, again, there's just so many question marks. Guys, I don't think Monty will ever actually show his work, but the amount of work he put in to give stats, to Like I'm pretty sure he bothered every single SID in college baseball to pull stats if they transfer to an ACC school. There's just so many like question marks, and like again, a guy like Ethan Foley has really good stats, but it was a JUCO college that I've never even heard of. Olone? Oh, how do you even say that, Monty?
I'm not sure,
like,
but
again, like I'm not. I'm like Cal is definitely the team that I am most excited to watch in 2025 because I already didn't know what to expect just transitioning from the Pac-12 to the ACC, but you're talking about a whole new staff. I mean, like from a obviously pitching standpoint, like, oh, they're going to be something to watch.
Yeah, and I think they've got the pieces. And again, it's just how these guys are going to kind of figure it out. I mean, another JUCO guy, Ryan Spilero, is a guy that's throwing this is a guy coming from JUCO. He's throwing 95, 97 in the fall. So he's going to be a fun piece. Is he necessarily a rotation option? I don't know. But, that's a guy that even if he's not a rotation option, that could be a key reliever. Miles Tensher, a freshman. Another guy that may not be a starter, but he could be a very effective reliever. He's a submarine slot guy, and we know how difficult those guys can be, historically. They've got some pieces. It's just how they're all going to fit. And like Gavin Eddy didn't play at all last year. He's a 6'5", 225-pound guy with, who could be a rotation piece that didn't pitch at all last year. They're really high on, Oliver De La Torre, who, he's another 6'4", 6'5" guy. He can touch 95 and, might get an opportunity to start, but his track record isn't great. So it's just really interesting to see. You've got a lot of unproven guys that are going to have to make steps in development this year.
Yeah, and like I think what scares me the most, Monty, with this staff, it's not again the fact that they are not capable of a special year. It's the fact that they do not they get no ease into this at all. I mean, Nevada's your opening weekend. Okay, maybe that's better, but we'll get to the schedules. Yeah. Their ACC start is brutal.
Yeah.
I have not stared at every AC baseball schedule, so I don't want to be going out here saying, oh, this is the toughest, and then 3 podcasts later being like, this is the toughest.
Yeah.
I don't know how it can get a lot tougher considering, too, the outside factor of, hello, this is your first year in the ACC. Like, Virginia, Duke, Clemson, Georgia Tech, Louisville, your first 5. That's rough.
Yeah, so obviously I had quite the adventure trying to project a rotation and kind of relief. But here's what we came up with Turkington, kind of by default being the Friday guy, Desart, who I spelled correctly finally on in the graphic, which is probably the most important one because this will be the one that'll be posted on social media at some point. But then David Shaw, it sounds like they really like him. And then Gavin Eddy, who I just talked about. The reason I think De La Torre might end up in the bullpen is they don't have a lot of left-handed guys. It's the same reason why somebody like a freshman like Jordy Lopez is going to be a key reliever because they don't have a ton of lefty guys. And there are some teams in the ACC that have some really strong left-handed hitters, some very strong left-handed hitters. So I think that's going to be interesting. But, when you put it up like this, it looks a little bit better, but there's still just a ton of question marks.
Yeah, again, this is the team that, again, I said it previously, right? I trust Mike New and his staff to develop these guys. The question is can they have them developed by March when they go to Durham or when Virginia comes to town or when they get Louisville, Clemson, go down the list? This could be 2025 could be a very rough year for Cal, but I'm also not writing Cal off they're just going to be a bottom feeder in the ACC for years to come. That's not the future I see for this program. But I mean, this is a program. If I didn't have a full-time job, I would love to go be like, hey, Coach Anu, can I spend a week around your program and just watch this pitching staff just to see what they have? Because I mean, it's just. Good on you, Monty, for trying to project this. I would have said, Monty, throw it in Chat GPT and tell me what it says.
Ultimately, that's kind of, I didn't quite do that, but ultimately, again, I don't know what I'm talking about. with Cal, I might know a little bit more when I'm talking about some of the other teams, but Cal, it's a little bit harder because, again, I wasn't able to get out to any fall ball games, so you're kind of depending on, talking to coaches and stuff like that. But it sounds like they're really high on certain guys. And then, the question is not only can they have them developed and ready to go by March, but can they have them in the right roles by March? Because that's sometimes, we saw it with Georgia Tech last year. Georgia Tech had a slow start and struggled a bunch, but once they figured out the roles for the 3 rotation guys, everything else settled in, and that's when Georgia Tech made their run to an NCAA tournament berth. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. It's not just necessarily having the right guys, it's having them in the right roles. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it all shakes out and how close or how far I am in these projections.
I will say I do like the ideas of the potential memes that could come from that rotation you have. The
yeah, that's true.
Are, like you've got desert, whatever it is, dessert. That's a good one waiting for you. I could see an Ed and Eddie meme coming for Gavin Eddy. I don't know if you remember, but David Shaw was the former head coach at Stanford for football. So if he happens to get the win against Stanford in baseball, there's a meme right there for you.
Yeah, there you go.
Monty. So there's a lot of good meme options, at least in this rotation.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping the Cal Burners maintain the energy that they had during football season for baseball.
I've talked to a few of them about it, so I'm hoping that we're going to be able to do some stuff with them. I am mad, by the way, we haven't got to their schedule yet, but I misread the schedule the first time I saw it. I saw them playing at Houston, and I got so excited. And then I was like, just kidding.
Just kidding. All right, well, we will get to the schedule, but first we're going to talk about something a little bit more fun for Cal, a little bit less question marks, and that's their lineup. There are still question marks, but behind the dish, they've got 3 guys to choose from in Ryan Taman, Alex Burge, and Nico Button. They've all got huge shoes to fill because Caleb Lomavita is now a Washington National. I don't know if you knew that, Micah, but the better team, the better organization in the DMV area. But Micah, how do you feel about this catching room? And, do you know anything about these guys that you want to talk about?
Well, I like Nico Button. I did some deep diving on him. He came up in conversation when I was out there, kind of what he brings to the table. Again, his senior leadership. Again, you actually had in your notes. That's funny that you mentioned it. They rave about what he brings to the program. I'm surprised you don't have him listed as the starter, but again, Monty clearly knows ball. Again, this is kind of what we talked about with BC, right? We don't know there's going to be competition for this position, but you feel good about it regardless of who ends up becoming the number 1 guy. And again, you're probably going to see a combination of all 3, honestly, at this point. But I think from that standpoint, right, it's hard. I mean, obviously they can't be downgrading that much if a Washington National was the former catcher. But no, obviously, for those of you that don't know, by the way, because some people especially the Cal people, don't know us that well, Monty, yet probably. I'm an Orioles fan. Monty's a Nationals fan. So we're just, doing a little Beltway series kind of trash talking right now. But, I mean, obviously it's going to be hard to replace someone like Caleb who, had an argument to be one of the best, if not the best catcher in college baseball last year. Yeah. I mean, he really was that special. So, obviously it's a tough position to replace, but again, like we talked about with BC, right? You feel pretty good that whoever comes out on top is going to be a very like we'll get to the rest of the teams in the ACC. It kind of feels like the ACC is the best conference for catchers.
Yeah, I had trouble because every time I'd be like, "Oh, this guy's the best catcher," then I'd think about another catcher in the ACC and be like, "Oh, wait, no, maybe he's they're loaded," and especially
I forgot he existed. And then you're like, "Oh wait, but I forgot that this guy also existed." And now it's
and then Jackson West at Florida State put on 30 pounds and so
he might be the best catcher.
So first base I had a little bit more fun with Dominique Smaldino. He's one of my breakout guys. I'm working on an article for Just Baseball that it may or may not be published by now, but Dominique Smaldino is one of my breakout guys. He only had 39 at bats last year, but he started the last 8 games and he's got some power. He's 6'6", 240. I think he's going to hit some bombs. And then Jeff Hoffman is a transfer in who I think is going to be the DH.
Oscar, any thoughts?
I think Oscar agreed.
Oscar's just ready for Clemson talk is what he's ready for.
By the way, Jeff Hoffman, another D3 transfer.
Where the conference is going to make D3 baseball relevant. No, I mean, I think, again, I'm not going to pretend like I know a lot on these guys. Like, I don't want to lie and be like, oh, yeah, like Dominic Salmadino is the greatest hitter in college baseball. Like, I'm not going to blow smoke, on things I don't know. I mean, again, you look at his numbers, right? Like, he had what? How many at-bats did he have, Monty? Did you list that?
Yep, 39.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, that's a position, right? That's again, I don't want to keep comparing the last podcast we had, but since we're releasing these in order, right? Like, last podcast we had was Boston College. We did not worry about the first base position with Boston College, where Cal, like, you've got options, but I mean, it's either the D3 guy or the guy with 39 career at-bats or career at-bats. So, I mean, I'll trust your word, Monty, on the conversations you've had and like the people that you've talked to, because one thing I wish I could do, Monty, is have you presented this slide to me before I went back there in August. But even though that wouldn't have done us any good because they had just started fall ball. But, I would love to have, picked their brains on kind of what they're thinking, because I will
say this. I will say Brett Wallace, who is the hitting coach, he told me Dom is an extremely hard worker and takes a lot of pride in being a complete player. He continues to grow as a defensive first baseman and as a leader on our team.
Where'd you get that from?
I got it from Brett Wallace. I talked to him.
I know. When?
Tuesday. Offensively, he has plus power and the ability to change the game with one swing. I'm excited to see his work play out this season. So
that's that Monty boots on the ground in DC action right there. I was like, Monty's like, you didn't do the podcast with New and them, so like.
No, I messaged him. I've got to ask him for a quote for my article, and there you go. So I'm feeling pretty good about
Dominic. From Cal was okay with that. Bold move, Monty.
Well, anyway, we're going to pull up the middle infield together, because these are the two highlight guys. Two of the best sophomores in the country. I mean, this might be the best sophomore middle infield in the country. You got Jaron Advincula, the Cape Cod batting champ. I interviewed him a couple months ago. Great kid. And then PJ Mutsaridis, who is a fantastic shortstop for them. I mean, Cal is set up for this year and next year in their middle infield. That's got to be really exciting. There's no question mark that these two guys are the starters at second and short. Yeah,
and I think what's special is PJ is his most notable attribute doesn't necessarily show up on the stat sheet. He's so good defensively. I mean, you obviously noted it a little bit, but in our wonderful spreadsheet. But I mean, he was tasked as a freshman to play one of the most important positions on the field, and he's just the type of kid that, I think if his actual batting numbers can get up a little bit, I mean, he's going to be a serious threat. That he almost hit 300, but if he gets it up to like a 315, 320, I mean, goodness gracious, this will be the best middle infield in the ACC? Question mark?
Yeah, could be.
I mean, it has the potential with Jaron obviously at second. I mean, I think that was the most fun thing, Monty, following your Cape Cod coverage was, I'm like, man, he's tweeting a lot about, like, it made me want to go bet, like, obviously I can't bet, disclaimer, I cannot bet on college athletics, but it made me excited about the potential of a Cal Omaha future, because the amount that Monty talked about Cal and the Cape Cod this summer, I was like, and a lot of it obviously came from Jaron. It was like, man, this team is the middle infield is a very, very solid group.
Yeah, I also Andres Gallon, who got drafted, was also a big contributor to those performances in the Cape, but he obviously is not with the team. He was a lot of guys that got that were on the performers did get drafted. There was a Duke kid who never even pitched for Duke. He was a transfer from UNC Wilmington, was going to pitch for Duke, got drafted, so he got the Duke logo without ever having to pitch for Duke. But yeah, no, Jaron Advincula was on there all the time, and he was a joy to watch. I mean, he is a good leadoff hitter, and I think one of the best leadoff hitters in the country, because he gets on base and walks a lot and has the ability to do some damage at the top of the order and get on base for their big boppers. Third base, they bring back senior Max Hadron. Carl Schmidt is going to be in that conversation, a guy who went to Texas A&M and did not get to play at all. They're really high on him. I think he's going to find ways to get at bats, but the other two guys in the middle of the lineup, in the middle of the field. Elijah Clayton and Cade Campbell, those kind of guys. I don't know how much playing time they're going to get. Elijah Clayton, by the way, name sounds familiar. That's Royce Clayton's son.
I liked Max Handren. So, story time, Monty. When I was at Cal, I don't know if it was actual practice yet, if it was just like, a BP session kind of thing in the cages. But I got to watch Max take 15 to 20 hacks while I was there. His pop was sneaky. Like when I saw him step in the cage, I wasn't like, oh yeah, this kid's gonna have some serious juice. But he had some very solid pop. And like it was cool because as soon as he stepped out of the cage, the first thing he did was he sat down with the coaches and kind of said, like, what's off? Like how was my mechanics here? Like he clearly wants to continue to grow. I mean, obviously he's a 6-year senior, so he's been around the game a lot. He's someone that if Cal is to have a special season, he's going to be a big part of that because of the senior leadership, because of his ability to obviously play the position at third base. And again, I think it's beneficial. You have a guy like Carl Schmidt behind him, who obviously you mentioned it, right? He was at A&M, kind of was highly touted, didn't get to play though. So he's going to be hungry because he wants to be the number one guy every single day. It's probably a big reason why he left A&M, right? Was to be the number one guy. So I think that's something that's a spot where, if Cal is having a special season, it's because Max Handren's having a breakout year.
Yeah. And again, this infield looks pretty good, but now when I throw out the outfield here, it gets a little bit more complicated again. Obviously, you've got the incumbent Seth Gwynn back in center field. Jacob French is a guy that could play all over the field. He's another transfer. I think he's a D2 transfer this time. From San Francisco State. He's a guy that can play all over the field, but it seems like the outfield might need him the most. And then Matthew Thomas is another guy who didn't have a ton of at-bats, but has a ton of pop that they really like, who could be in right field. And then Joey Donnelly, who didn't play hardly at all last year, he could be in the conversation for some at-bats. Apparently, he's had a really strong fall. And then, you've got some recruits like Jordy Lopez and Kalen Applefield, who, Kalen Applefield's supposed to be a catcher. He might be the catcher of the future, but if he can hit, his athleticism might need to get him some time in the outfield. Cole Tremaine's a two-way guy from Baylor who should get time in the outfield as well, but a lot more question marks here than on the infield.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to we talked about the pitching. I mean, you have to be around this program, I think, to really know what to expect with this unit. It's nice that you feel like you have options. At least it's not like, at least your list, Monty, is not like one deep on some positions and two deep max on others. But at the same time, it could be almost a negative thing that there's so much open competition because like it might mean there's not a lot there. I'm not implying that, but it's them and what Notre Dame have the most questions in 2025.
I think Cal might have even more.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, I mean, we'll get to our thoughts. I'll save my
because Notre Dame brings back a little bit more experience in the rotation and bullpen.
And again, like, I don't want to speak for you, Monty, but I'll speak for myself. Like, this was already going to be a hard thing to cover because we didn't get a lot of I didn't see much Cal in the Appalachian League this summer. There wasn't a lot of Cal representation at Team USA this summer. So I didn't get a chance to see a lot of Cal. You got to see very little of Cal besides watching, obviously, the Cape in the summer. But that's only, 2 or 3 guys?
Yeah, because PJ Mutsaridis played, I think, 3 games in the Cape. And
like, I'll sell myself out. I had Pac-12 Network, but I didn't dial into a lot of Cal games last year. I mean, it was a lot more of, I watched the Oregon States, the Arizonas, the Arizona States kind of thing. But
I watched Cal play Pitt, and that didn't go well for Cal.
That's true. Yeah, the one taste of Cal we really got as a group was an absolute just like Pitt, like that was when we were like, oh no, Pitt might actually be something. And obviously it did not pan out to be a very special year for Pitt last year. But I mean, it's I think it's almost great podcasting, just to be honest and say the question marks, mark, shrug emoji from me.
Yeah. So this is what the projected lineup looks like. My best guess. I'll be happy if I can get,
you couldn't Photoshop the patch, Monty.
No, no, I didn't even think about it. So, but there's Jaron Advincula, who I will be at second base, but Yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at here. Here's a potential batting order, with Avincula at the top, with French at 2, Mutsaritas, at the 3, Hoffman, cleanup, Handred 5, and then Dominique Spaldino 6, and then you've got some question marks there. But a lot of question marks.
Yeah,
yeah. But yeah,
there's the note on Monty. When Monty just says "yeah" in the middle of a sentence, that's his way of saying I don't know what to say. Anything that I might say is going to potentially be negative, or not negative, but isn't necessarily my opinion because I just don't know.
Yeah.
Is my shoulder shrug emoji that I like to constantly say over and over again.
I am excited to see Cal though, because I do think, again, if things go right with certain guys, and again, I do believe in Dominique Smaldino, I believe in Jaron Advincula, I believe in PJ Mutsaritas. It's just trying to get these guys on the same page and then trying to compete in the ACC, which is not an easy thing to do. And let's take a look at that schedule. There it is. You want to start off with talking about their opening ACC schedule?
Hold on, let me say a prayer. Dear Calgorithm, I pray that you might be on the sides of the California Golden Bear baseball team as they go through hell and back the first 5 weeks of ACC play. Amen. I mean, my gosh. Like, your easiest opponent is Georgia Tech at home? No, that's on the road. That's what
they got Louisville and Georgia Tech on the road. They got Clemson.
Your easiest opponent. I mean, no disrespect to Georgia Tech. I think Louisville's getting a little bit more hype preseason, but pick and choose which one you want to go with, right, is your easiest ACC weekend of the 5. And none of those are easy. All 5 of those teams, in my opinion, are locks for the NCAA tournament as of whatever day we're recording in late January 2020.
Look who that 6th team is.
Oh, my gosh. I'm sorry, NC State. I just skipped right over you. Or just didn't keep going down the list. Gosh, damn.
Yeah, you got an Omaha team as your 6th. So,
okay, this does not realistically happen, and I'm not trying to crap on Cal. But there is a world, if things are disastrous trying to figure out lineups, they're like 3-15 with Notre Dame when they head to South Bend. And we've seen it, Monty. What is Notre Dame really good at? Playing at home.
Yes.
Like, you're limping into your home series with, Florida State. Like 4-18, 17 in ACC play. I mean, again, I'm not predicting that, but like, there is not much room for trying to figure out that outfield, trying to figure out that pitching staff. And like, again, we saw a lot of depth with the like competition, but we don't know how deep that lineup truly, like that roster truly is from an ACC talent standpoint. So let's just hope Cal stays healthy. I mean, I love that Mike New and his staff is positive and they're excited about 2025. We'd be concerned, right, if they weren't. But I wonder if you give that staff a little bit of truth serum, if they're just like, come on, ACC. Well, like we should have asked John why they hate Cal. We know it's not John's fault. John, if you watch this, we're not taking shots at you. We know it's just a random number generator, but this is brutal.
Yeah, it is a brutal schedule. Man, oof. Yeah, they could have a tough time, and that's partly why I've put them towards the bottom, unfortunately. But again, that's not saying they can't surprise people, because I think
like their non-con's pretty good too. Like Utah was a very good team. It's obviously just a midweek. Houston's a good weekend series. That's a team I think it's planning to take a step forward in the Big 12 this year. Nevada. Whatever, but I mean,
they're playing Houston at home, by the way, not in Houston. Just so you know, Micah.
Well, see, so again, this is why I hate schedule graphics that do colors. Again, they gave us a code, so it's on me. I'm so used to like the bright color popping being the one that's the home games. Again, you wear white at home, so it makes sense you make the white the home games. But when I just read it just nonchalantly, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. They're going to Houston. Like, but I should have looked and said, oh, wait, why would they go to Nevada? That wouldn't make much sense. Yeah. Like an ACC team. But
where do you see Cal ended up? Obviously, we both believe if things go really right for them, they could compete for a NCAA tournament depth.
Well, I had them higher. I had them higher on my list, but I will say, Monty, again, when I sent him my list a month ago, we were still in football mode.
That was football, Micah. That wasn't you.
We've done a lot more diving in, again, you sent me this spreadsheet like a week ago, and you'll be proud of me, Monty. I spent about 3 hours the other day, like actually studying it. And like, if there were names I didn't know, I tried to watch some stuff, like to at least kind of be like, again, especially these freshmen, like I'll be the first to say I don't follow freshman recruiting rankings, but like, all right, let's see where this kid ranked in PG. Like, is he a name people have talked about? It might be copped out, and I don't think that this is the case. I do believe that Cal can have a special season. I might put them at the literally last place in the preseason poll because there's just so many questions. It's not fair to them, but someone's going to have to be that preseason bottom team. And like you said, like Notre Dame was the team I had at the bottom when I sent it to Jake. But the more I think about it, I know more about them. And again, I haven't stared at Notre Dame's schedule. But considering Cal goes to Notre Dame, where it's the Cal fans that are watching this, ask a lot of any ACC fans, good teams, bad teams, what happens when you go to South Bend? It's not a fun time. It's never fun. I don't know what it is. Like we watched Virginia lose a key weekend there, 2 years ago? We saw, obviously.
Swept.
Yeah, didn't they sweep? They swept, was it?
Notre Dame swept Virginia.
Yeah, but did they sweep Florida State last Wake? They swept somebody.
They took 2 of 3 from Wake.
That's what it was. So, like, they win big weekends in the ACC.
They went 9-6 at home.
Correct.
In the
so,
ACC.
Like, so they're like, so no disrespect to Cal, right? But, like, you could be better than them, and you're going to struggle in South Bend. That just seems to be what history says. And it doesn't matter who. It's not like it was a Link Jarrett thing. It's whoever is in charge in South Bend. Like, it might just be the fact that Touchdown Jesus might have enough reach to get to the ballpark and convince people that X Stadium? I think it's X Stadium. Anyways, to get, to help them out. But it's, I think it's a cop-out, right? But, they might just be the bottom, Monty.
Yeah, no,
maybe what I need to do is I need to do exactly what I did for Georgia Tech last year. I'm going to crap on Cal. Coach New, if you're watching this, because there's a chance he might. I think he's.
Didn't you say this about a different team the other day?
Yeah, but this is different because this is personal. I love the Cal Bears. My cover photo is me repping the beautiful California baseball gear on beautiful Strawberry Canyon in beautiful Berkeley, California. But yeah, like I will be watching a lot of week 1.
Yeah.
With Nevada Cal would never have been on my radar 2 years ago, and I will probably watch as much of those games, obviously, while watching other games in person as I can.
That's going to do it here for us talking about Cal. We'll be back tomorrow with the Clemson Tigers. Something tells me we're not going to have a ton of question marks about them, are we?
Who's Clemson?
Yeah. So we'll be back, and until next time, it just means less.